Hello and welcome to the I Am Evolution podcast. Spirit guide and soul sage Raina shares the knowledge of the universe to awaken and raise consciousness within. All of us have forgotten who we are and why we are here. But if we open our minds to new knowledge, we can use duality to achieve different perspectives to regain our unity. When we expand our awareness within, our possibilities become limitless. Let's begin to remember who we truly are and fulfill our mission and purpose to become conscious. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the I Am Evolution podcast. I'm your host, Raina, and today is Tuesday, and I am just so excited for tonight because not only do we have a fabulous guest tonight, but you know what? I got my dog's lab results back, and all the tumors that we just removed are benign, so I am always excited about that. I got worried for my little baby, of course. You know, it's so funny how animals grow on you because I was always such an independent person, and when I first got Nira, I had a hard time with having her around because I was so independent and so used to doing everything. And I always had a problem and struggle with people or even animals that were very needy. Well, as usual, the universe puts Nira, who's as needy as possible, in my path. And the first 2 years we struggled. And I look back and I kind of laugh and I look at the memories and I just laugh because the transition and the development of the growth in me just having her, and I can't see my life without her, and to the point where I was kind of worried that these tumors were going to be a little bit more than benign. So I'm really happy. I can't see my life without her now. So thank you to everybody who gave us the best wishes and well wishes for my dog. I really, really appreciate it, and sending love back to you. All right, guys. As always, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, D Live, and the replays for this show will always be in the Facebook events link. So if you're not part of that, make sure you sign up for our Facebook page at I Am Evolution Podcast and sign up for the events, and you'll be up to date with everything. So let's get into today's show because I am so excited. I've had this person who's coming on today is absolutely amazing. I adore her in every way. I have so much respect for her and everything that she's done from the first time I've met her. I've tried to be a part of what she does because it's so inspirational. And I just said, we've had her on the show before, and I was trying to think of what guest I would want to have on the new form podcast, and her name came right to the top of the list. So she is a survivor advocate and the founder of the Inner Truth Project, which is here in Port St. Lucie County. So everybody, please welcome Mindi Fetterman. Hi, how are you?
I was just loving that little discussion about your baby because I was laughing when we were getting ready and doing the sound check. I was thinking, do I need to kick my baby out of the room because he's snoring so loud, and it's gonna definitely pick up on your show, but that is life with dogs, and I wouldn't have it any
Right.
other way. And mine is Bubba Joe Pickle, and he is like absolutely my shadow and like part of my life. So I get it
Absolutely,
completely.
absolutely. They are beautiful, and it's funny because how much they change your life. And I never really understood because I was always a cat person, and I was always very independent. You know how cats are wonderful, they're loving, they come and go. But I always had that separation, and dogs are a whole different breed on their own, right?
Yeah, yeah. But you know what you said is so true. The universe will definitely put in your in the chapter of your story what you need in the moment. And animals sometimes are the perfect reflection of what you need in a relationship, because they mirror what you need to work on. whether, oh, there's my cuckoo clock, sorry, forgot to turn that off. Whether it's, patience or relaxation or being in the moment or learning how to kind of laugh at yourself, animals will do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Mindy, let's get into today's show because I want people to. I know we've done this last show, but for people who are new to the program and everything like that, can you tell them a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for inviting me back again, which means I didn't scare you
You
the
would never
first
scare
time.
me.
So as you said, I'm a survivor advocate and a survivor of what? I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And I was gang raped when I was 16 and then assaulted again when I was an adult. And so my entire life has really been about sexual trauma. And like so many people that I have the privilege of meeting, I decided along the way, I don't know, it was a conscious decision, but at some point decided that I was going to take all the things that had happened to me and use them for good, right? Because we can't change the experiences and we can't make them not happen. So I really wanted to be an advocate for other people who had experienced sexual trauma. I never felt like I wanted to keep it a secret. And so years ago, I started talking about what had happened to me, and I wanted to help people not feel so um, secretive and dirty about their stories because my story is not unique. There are so many people who experience rape and sexual abuse and incest. So for the last 20 years, that's the work that I've been doing, and for the last decade I've been running the nonprofit called the Inner Truth
Well,
Project.
first of all, let me congratulate you on such a wonderful job at the Inner Truth Project. If you've never been there, people, it
Thanks.
is a beautiful, heartwarming place to go to. It is safe. And when I first entered there, the energy there was just so amazing that I just always wanted to be a part of it. And I kept asking Mindy over here, I was like, can I do classes there? Can I do classes there? Because it's just so inviting. And if you're in the area, or even if you're not in the area, we're going to give her information out later and everything like that. But she is somebody to contact if you follow under this. But you said something that that a lot of people. You said, well, my life was I didn't want to be secretive because a lot of this is even in today's world, it's still we've had the Me Too movement and all these different things, and I still watch how the court systems and different things unfortunately are manipulated sometimes, and and people are afraid to talk about this because of embarrassment and shaming. Even though we're supposed to be a more enlightened group now, and everybody's kind of sensitive to things, it still falls kind of under that category, right?
Yeah, well, exactly what you just said. We're supposed to be enlightened, right? So um, because we think that we're supposed to be a certain way when these things happen, and they do, because it is all around us, and no matter how enlightened you are or how much you prepare to protect yourself, things happen. And so when they happen, it's like, how could it happen to me? I'm smarter, I'm educated, I protect myself. And so then that's where the shame comes in. So we don't do enough about educating people that this happens to all types of people in all types of situation, and that the blame is never on the victim, no matter what. The conversation doesn't revolve around that. So it keeps people in that silence, and we really do stay in a victim blaming society. And that's really where we have to move out of. And it even starts very, very young with our kids. We still teach stranger danger. And it's not to say that those types of things couldn't happen, but we never talk
Yeah.
about the fact that strange behavior is the danger. And strange behavior can happen with someone that you know. It's not necessarily the strangers. Most of us are victimized by people that we know. And that's where the shame comes in.
And I think that's very important for people to understand that, because behavior is the first sign to everything. And it's not like someone wakes up one day
Right?
and goes, "Hey, I'm going to do this to somebody." It's a thought process over many years and many experiences that is developed. And I think that a lot of times as parents, we and I see this all the time, that they want to see their child as like the good child, and they don't do anything wrong, and they don't want to see the warning signs sometimes, and a lot of people just don't pay attention to it. Not only in that, I think that sometimes we're not taught to see those things. Like, there's an excuse. Well, that's just that's just a man. He's just a boy. Boys will do that, and women do it too, and that's so. I think that our society has developed that idea. Well, these are just forgivens because this is the way adolescents or adults are supposed to be, and because of your gender or whatever. And I think that stigma has to kind of go down and say, well, we need to start looking at these people when they're children and seeing if we can recondition their minds or develop them in a different way.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And that's why, sometimes when we are in the community doing our work, it makes people a little uncomfortable because they think that we're going to talk about sex. And, we're such Puritans, people don't want anyone talking about sex, let alone bad sex, violence. But we're not looking to engage young people or families about sex. We're looking to talk to parents and engage them in how they can talk to their children as early as possible about their bodies and about agency over their body and about self-esteem and about using their voice and about consent. And that doesn't have to have anything to do with sex. And the sooner that we have those conversations as young people and in our families and with an open dialogue, then no matter what the situation is when we're older or whatever age, when it involves something sexual in nature or any type of boundary that gets crossed, then we already have that lesson about this is my vessel. I understand boundaries. I know how to advocate for myself. I know the difference between right and wrong and a good energy and a bad energy. So we don't talk about
Absolutely.
any of those things.
And I was actually having a conversation with one of my friends the other day because he was on the other side. He was abused and sexually assaulted, and he has a hard time with it because men. Well, what do you mean? Why you didn't enjoy that? and he struggles with it every single day. And we were talking about something, and I remember he was under that stigma too because he had his niece over and they were talking about something and he's like, oh, I can't bring that up around her. And I said, well, why? I was like, why can't you bring this topic up? Well, no, she's too young for that. And I was like, the more we start to, when we say that a child is too young to hear something, yes, I get it that there is a specific age where their development can't truly understand something. But when you hide something, it conditions the brain to say, well, something's wrong with that, because if you're not supposed to talk about that, then something's wrong with that. And then it starts to make the mind uncomfortable because it knows or it thinks that this topic should not be talked about.
Exactly. So you brought up a couple of different things. One is the more we put off being the one to expose our children to certain topics, the greater the chances that they're going to learn it from somewhere else, and they're going to learn it in the wrong way. So if your child, unfortunately, is exposed to sexual trauma, if they're abused, if they're molested, if they're fondled, right? And we haven't talked about it, or we've taught them that something is wrong with their body or that there's something shameful about the topic, that experience, then they double down because now they're definitely going to think they did something wrong, there's something wrong with them, and there's something shameful about their body. So that's sort of how that cycle begins. And then the second thing that you mentioned is, we as women definitely have our issues with being perpetrated against, but men, the stigma is even greater because perpetrators aren't always men, but a majority of them are. And let me just make one caveat there. A majority of men are really, really good. It's a small minority of the men that are the perpetrators, but most perpetrators are male. So when a man is perpetrated against, typically, not always, his perpetrator is a man. So that calls into question usually his own sexuality. And so not only is he dealing with what happened to him, the egregious act, the violence, the boundaries, but he's also thinking about his own sexuality, the gender issue. And then that makes it even harder for them to talk about, right? Because your body's going to react the way your body's going to react, whether you enjoy it or not. And so it keeps men very quiet. And then we have a society who basically says, um, when somebody gets arrested, we talk about what their history was. And so often we see these horrific stories of these monsters who get arrested, and they talk about how they were abused as children, they were sexually violated as children. And so then we automatically think, well, if someone knows that happened to me, they're going to think that I'm
Yeah.
going to do it too. And there's a myth there that's not
Right.
true, right? So there's so many reasons that men don't want to share that they've been victimized, because they don't want to be looked at as a possible perpetrator, and they don't want to be looked at as calling into question their
Absolutely, because
sexuality.
if a guy shares his feelings, or a guy says "I love you," or says something like that, well, then you're gay, you're a fag, you're these ideas. And I hate to use those words, but that's the cold hard truth. My
Right,
friend, I see my male friends struggle with this, and I've had a few clients just
right.
recently, and they're like, I struggle with this because if I show myself, I get called a girl or gay or this, and it's like.
Not
Yeah, and it's
manly
like, what
enough.
is this idea of this masculinity and feminine? Like, we have these ideas so off, and it creates this chaos. And I really think that's one of the reasons that men, die so much earlier, because they're holding in all this stress, all this emotion, and for like, unless you're like a 6'2" guy that people are afraid of, you're not really going to show your emotions, because most guys are, want to fit in, they want to be that, and you're.
Well, think about how much harder it is even for that guy who fits the stereotype of what a
Yeah,
man looks like physically. And you're talking about now a whole other part of our work. We do so much with men specifically, talking about breaking out of that
yes,
man box. And I don't know if you're familiar with author
no,
Tony Porter, but his work is incredible, and I encourage your listeners to look him up. His name is Tony Porter, and he started an organization called uh, Men Can Stop Violence. I believe that's the name of it. And the work is all about breaking down the man box and the stereotypes that men believe make men. That you have to be stoic and strong and make money, and you have to look a certain way, and all of these attributes. And then when you don't fit into that man box,
yes,
you're a
yes.
failure. And living in that man box also requires that you
Yes.
sexualize women. So it also creates this pattern where the sexualization and the allowance of sexual violence is permitted. So it all is hand in hand. It's incredible that you brought that up.
Because it's so true, and I don't, and you know what, Mindy, I don't think it's talked about enough, because when you hear sexual violence or sexual assault, the first thing is women right away. And yes, you're right, the majority of it is done to women, but there is a big amount, and I have several clients that are going through this and are still, and we were on the phone the other day with this, and I sat down and I said, it's sad that that more men don't get involved in this because of the idea that society puts on them. And I love this, that Tony Porter made this book, or it was a book, you said.
He has a book
But
also,
I
yeah.
love that, because there's so, like, when you get out of the idea, and that's one of the things I was telling them. I was like, you have to destroy this idea of what you think a man is, because your idea of a man has been placed on society, and all these restrictions keep you, I mean, he's depressed all the time, chaotic, like he's attempted suicide, like, all because he doesn't know how to get out of what he says this man box is. And it's amazing how our
Exactly.
mind traps us. And whether you're a man or a woman, you believe what society has told you, because you don't even know it's there. And in this situation, in these cases, you don't know how much that those little whispers over the years, especially when you hear it on TV, or you hear your friends, or in grade school, or teachers, or whatever, you constantly hear a specific message. And those are ingrained in your brain.
Absolutely. Do you know the documentary, The Mask We Live
I've
In?
heard
Have
of
you
it.
heard
I
of that?
haven't watched it. I've heard of it.
Yeah, I would encourage you to try to find it. It's really powerful, and it talks exactly about everything that you're bringing up, and your audience would probably enjoy it. And it really talks about, at a very young age when we are with
Yeah.
little boys and we say, "Why are you crying?
Yeah.
Stop crying. There's nothing to be crying about." We don't allow them to explore
Yes.
their emotions, and then when they do cry, what do we say to them?
Yes.
Stop being a sissy. Stop acting like a
Yes.
girl.
Yes. Even in softball.
What does that say
Even
about
in
girls?
softball.
Right? Like that's the worst thing you can do is
Yes.
act like a girl. Then we must be the lowest
Yes.
of the
And
low.
and people, and sorry for interrupting you because I thought even in softball, the guys are saying, "Oh, well, a girl's up now," go saying it to another guy, and I'm sitting there and I look at them and I say, "So what are we? Like, are we crap players? Are we just here for just to fill in spots?" And then they kind of look and they don't know what to say. I'm not too popular with the softball community because I'm the first one that throws it in their face. I'll be like, "Up, hands up,"
All
and then
right.
when I go up and I whack the ball to the fence, I'm like, "Up, a girl hit," you know.
Yeah. Yeah, they gotta
They
love
they love
you.
me so much. They invite me to so many teams. Let me tell you. But it's so true. It's so and it doesn't matter if there's so many boxes that we're put in, and the gender role and the gender ideas, and like I was raised that a woman is supposed to not even go to college, go to the find a guy, have him take care of you. A man is supposed to be the breadwinner and always, and so yeah, if you don't fit these ideas, well then you're a failure in society. And I struggled with that my entire, like, for many years of my life. And that's one of the reasons why I left Chicago. And I was like, you know what, Mindy, I was like, I'm done, Raina. I'm done with all this. I was like, there's too much pressure to take over my father's business and do this and do that. I was like, I don't even know what I want because everything's been placed for me. And so this idea, and I think this is good for people to try to understand them when dealing with this, especially if they've gone through these experiences, is to find someone like you, to start reading up, to start understanding that what they're believing is usually creating more, because a victim holds on to, the brain says, oh, this was a terrible experience and I have to relive this. It's almost like a form of self-punishment, and they relive it over and over and over. And that experience is as real today as it was when it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people have cognitive distortions, right? Where they think it's kind of all or nothing. Everything I do is bad. Everything I do is wrong. And it's hard to um, really understand where that thinking comes from, where that breakdown is, and what is real and what is not real. So it is very helpful when you can get with somebody else and kind of explore where does that pattern of thinking come from, and what behaviors are based on that thinking, and how much of it really is from the imprint from society, and how much of it comes down to what is expected of you from your cultural beliefs and your gender beliefs, right? And then you realize this is not really in line with me and my
Yeah.
purpose at all.
Absolutely. And there's cultures out there that do honor killings and and believe in specific things. And if you fall under that culture, well, then they're allowed to do anything, and some laws protect that. Thankfully in America, our laws aren't supposed to, but I still see some protection sometimes. And that one of the things that you said earlier, and I think this is very helpful to develop, is boundaries, and not just boundaries with other people, but boundaries with yourself, because you kind of let what has happened to you control and dictate you your whole life. And what do you see in your business that when people don't have boundaries with themselves, when they have experiences trauma, what do you see that happens to them?
Well, you're spot on, because oftentimes when we think about boundaries, we think about, well, we let somebody in our space, right? Or we let somebody physically um, touch us. But boundaries are about time. Boundaries are about our emotions, and we are the first always to allow people to break those boundaries that we set for ourselves. And um, we have to think, why do we do that? What is the belief that we have about ourselves? And so I'll give you a perfect example. um, actually, it's not the perfect example, but I told you I wasn't feeling well
That's that.
this morning, right? So you said, do you want to reschedule? I was like, no, no, no. So, how often do we let people break that energy boundary because we just feel like, well, we're supposed to do it. So that's not a great example because I'm well enough to be here with you and I wanted to be here with you. But think about how often we just say, no, no, it's fine, right? That's a boundary. And so we don't really do what is best for our mental or physical health. And we give our energy away, we give our time away, we give our space away, right? And so it's not a popular thing to say, but it really is sort of living in a victim mentality. Because then what ends up happening is at the end of the day, when you're completely tapped out or when you're feeling sick and you have no more energy or you have no more resources, it's, well, I had to do this and I had to do that. And then this person wanted this. And it's like, well, okay, whose
Yeah.
fault is that? It's your own fault, right? And so being a survivor, whether you want to call yourself that or not, is really being accountable now for every action moving forward. We cannot change the fact that we were sexually abused or we were raped, right? It's all in the past. But once you know that you are in control of your thoughts, of your body, of your energy, of your mind, everything from this point forward, then everything that results from that is your responsibility. So every time you allow somebody to come into your space or take your time or your energy and break that boundary and you complain about it, it really is living in that victim mentality. So you have to think, what is the payoff? Why are you allowing that? And so that's really the work that we do with our
And that's absolutely
survivors.
beautifully said because boundaries boundaries are one of the number one causes for everything, that why we feel mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted, why we're overworking. Even in parenting, oh, we got to put the kids first at all costs. Oh, no, you have to put yourself first because you're not healthy. You can't take care of the kids. If you're not, if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to do what you need to do for whatever you're trying to do? And I hear that all the time. No, 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 don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. And I see them. They're pale. They're exhausted. Like people. And it doesn't matter. But if you're emotionally exhausted, if you're constantly replaying, the act of assault in your mind, and that constantly, they've been shown in studies that the brain requires the most blood in the body. And the more you think, the more blood is consumed in the body. Once that happens, if you're a constant thinker, you're constantly consuming the blood, and your body can't make up the blood fast enough, which is why people are anemic, they're deficient, and why they're tired all the time, just mentally and emotionally, because the body physically doesn't have the blood that's required to, send the nutrients and oxygen and everything through the body. And it's amazing because, just that idea of being accountable, because people don't like, well, that, and I hear, well, this was done to me. Well, yes, it was, but
Right.
being accountable is not just, saying, well, being accountable for that. It's saying, well, okay, that's over with, like you said, but now I have the responsibility to make my life what it is. And I think that's the difference between people who move on with their life and people who don't. But Mindi, we are going to take a short break, and we're going to get right back to that second question.
Okay.
And we'll be right back after these messages from I Am Evolution.
The human experience is changing, and consciousness is evolving into something higher than any of us could ever imagine. As we transform into more sentient beings, a new world of connected consciousness is taking place. Welcome to I Am Evolution, the movement in human development that transforms the human experience into a deeper consciousness through perspective and duality. Are you ready to be a part of the next stage in human evolution? Call I Am Evolution today to schedule your appointment at 561-318-0006. That's 561-318-0006. Or email us at iamevolution@protonmail.com.
All right, everybody, we are back, and if you are just joining us, we are having an amazing time with Mindi Fetterman. She is the founder of the Inner Truth Project in Port St. Lucie County in Florida here. And Mindi, I am having such a fabulous time talking to you with this conversation, and I think it's very important for people to start understanding this topic. It's not always about man versus woman, because I think people get confused with this idea, and I think sometimes that's where the offensiveness comes in and the uneducation of what is really happening. And the last thing we were talking about was boundaries and having the responsibility and accountability of taking control of your life and just saying, yes, this, like accepting it, saying, this happened to me. And you know what? I can't change it. It sucks. I don't like it. But what I can change and what I am responsible is for how I live my life now. And I think that's the importance of where we need to start heading in our culture.
Absolutely, yeah. And speaking about the gender thing, um, eh, people need to understand when it comes to sexual violence, not always, but a lot of times it's really not about the sex. It's about power and it's about control. So it doesn't really matter about the gender. So a man can be a perpetrator, a woman can be a perpetrator. Any gender can be a perpetrator, any gender can be a victim. And then there's like mix and match, however, right? Because it's not really about, oh my gosh, I'm so attracted to that person and they said no and I'm going to get them at any cost. It's not about desire and attraction. So it's power and it's control and it's manipulation and it's a violent act, and so we have to have this shift in our thinking and go back to more about understanding it's a crossing of boundaries. It is a violent act, and it's not necessarily about sex. So once people understand that, it helps, I think, take away that guilt of there was something about
Yes.
me that I did, that I acted a certain way, that I was wearing something, that I said something. None of that is part of the equation, right? Somebody crossed your boundary, someone took advantage of you for their own
Yeah.
needs. And it doesn't matter black, white, rich, poor, young, old. Perpetrators perpetrate because they want to.
Yeah, and I think that's a message that really needs to sink in, because we've heard that in society. Well, she was wearing that, well, she's dressing like that. Well, stop dressing like that because you're taunting me. No, it has nothing to do with that. People, I'm a firm believer. Do what you want as long as you're not hurting anybody or pushing anything that, against somebody's will. And so, we hear these excuses all the time, and, sometimes the excuses get away with it. And that reinforces, well, well, if I dress like this, if I act like this, whether it's a guy or a girl, well, then that sends the message that I'm doing it. And there are people that reinforce that message, but it is about power and control, because, when people act like this, they feel helpless. Like the true meaning of how they feel insecure, they feel that, and so their need to control something weaker than them balances that shift in their mind and their perception to make them feel, maybe not so scared or powerless. And sometimes I've seen people who were bullied and abused themselves do that because they're trying to make up for what they feel they lost as well.
Yeah. Well, and I recently did a workshop with high school students, and we had this very conversation, and I asked them, if you are um, flirting and you feel like you're leading somebody on, and it's getting to the point where maybe something's going to happen, and all of a sudden you decide that you don't want to, what do you think should happen? And overwhelmingly, the room said, there was something wrong with that girl, that she was a tease, that, she shouldn't have taken him that far down the road, and at that point she should follow through with it. And she shouldn't have been dressing the way she was. She shouldn't have gone to the party and gotten drunk, you know. So again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, that victim blaming mentality, right? And it, it starts with
Yeah.
those conversations. It starts with those young people and explaining what this really is and about agency over our body, and that we have a right always to change our mind, to understand what consent is, and that it does not matter whether, you know, not that we want people to do this, but if you were to walk down the
Yeah.
street naked, you know, nobody has a right to victimize
Absolutely.
you.
Hearing that when you said that about the room, I was watching a Bill Burr. You know who Bill Burr is? He's a comic, and he's very vocal and very angry in that. And I saw a skit on him, and he was talking about. He's like, well, no doesn't. People no doesn't always mean no. He's like, if you say no, that means no. He's like, and yes, you should. But he's like, sometimes when you're just like, no, stop it, and he's doing his skit and that. And that doesn't mean no. That means you're flirting back. You just don't want to admit. And and all the guys, and I saw this, and I just saw a blast of everything. And our society still needs to be educated on this, because I feel like it's become like almost a separate, instead of coming together and understanding, and it's almost like a war between the sexes. Okay, well, one sex wants to say this and do this, and the other sex thinks it's, you shouldn't be able to do, and it's like, it's not about that, and it's not about, picking on men or picking on women or women's. I think the big message is education here. Education at a young age, education to say, hey, we need to learn to respect each other. Yes, we all have urges, we all have things, but that doesn't mean we always act on those urges. And people,
Right.
I truly am a fan of every kid going throughout their school years, maybe seeing counselors, like, how they have school counselors and stuff, and just talking to them and seeing if they can, see, and maybe that will help some of the kids to understand, their hormones, aggressions and different things like that, or maybe their thought processes, and maybe stop some of this.
Right, just having a real conversation. And by the way, thank you, Bubba, for having the longest drink possible while we're doing a live interview.
I could barely hear it. I thought it was papers.
Yeah, no, no. He just decided right in the middle of us talking that he was going to make as much noise as possible. But I think having these conversations is crucial, because we can do it in a way that is
Yeah.
age appropriate and that it's fun, and it doesn't have to make anybody
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but we can bring in all different types of scenarios so that kids have an opportunity to work out
Yes.
real life, so that when it does happen, it's not awkward, right? Because right now, in what happens in the news and in with all the talking heads, is they say, oh, we want to ask for permission for everything, and they make it so silly, and then we hear the no doesn't really mean no, it means
Yeah.
just keep asking, to keep pushing until you get what you want, right? So you're right, we have to meet in the middle, we have to figure out a way for men and women to be working together and have real life conversations, because this is
No.
not a joke. And um, eventually you will have a conversation with somebody in your family or a friend who's going to tell you that they had a real life situation, that could have been prevented if we just learn how to have these conversations and work with
Yeah.
respect with each other.
I don't think that people, with certain mindsets understands the damage that this does. And it doesn't matter, like you said, if it's a man or a woman getting assaulted or raped, it doesn't matter. It's not a joke. And I've seen people, like, their lives, like I said, I have two friends that have had this, one's a man, one's a woman, and they're both equally, like, they can't get out of bed half the time. They see no point to the world. They see
Yeah.
the world is mean and vicious, and and their social interactions are awkward, and when you bring them out, everyone's like, who's the weird people, you know, and I'm like, weird
Oh,
people. I was like, what? Just because they're shy? I was like, because they're not trusting, like the bridges that are destroyed, the social interaction. So this isn't about one experience. This is about, you know, what they've learned to develop after that experience that needs to be, you know, worked through and reversed so that they can start to, you know, enjoy life and not see everybody as a threat. So my next question to you then is, you know, because a lot of people I'm sure are thinking, well, you know, I go through this every day. Can the trauma ever really be healed?
oh, I'm so glad that you asked me that. And the answer is 100% yes. I hear often when I work with survivors that they identify themselves
Yeah.
as broken, or that they've been dealing with this their whole lives. I work with a lot of older people who have been carrying this secret or been carrying this trauma for 30, 40 years. And does it imprint on your life? Absolutely. Does it go away? No, never. It's a part of you. But does it mean that you cannot be healed, so to speak, or that you're not going to be okay? Of course you can be okay. It means that your life is different. It's a part of your story, but it's about finding the resilience and the strength and the powers that come out of it. Your sense of people, your different strengths in figuring out how to trust people, your heightened awareness. Um, there's a lot of different things that you can tap into. And so everybody has their own journey and their own healing path, and everybody comes out the other side different, but you absolutely can heal. Also, a lot of people think that, they have to share their story in order to heal, and I don't believe that that is true. In fact, there's research that says that you don't actually have to speak the words, but you do need to get help. And that's because trauma lives in our bodies and it affects mind, body, and spirit. So getting connected with the right therapist, the right support group, finding out, what's going on inside of you physiologically, working on all of those things, you can have a full, happy, vibrant life.
And you
Absolutely.
know, I think you and I are examples of that because, you know, we've both been abused, we've both had trauma in our life, and you know, that's one of the reasons why I do what I do is because I looked at the world and I hated the world and I was defensive towards everybody and I didn't want to be like that anymore. I got tired of my story saying I'm the victim to this. Well, this is my story of this. And I got tired of that. I said, you know what? I want to be something different. And so I moved, I created what I want. And every day I focus on like understanding myself, understanding people, understanding what people go through, including and through experiences. And I've used the experiences of my past to fuel me and to look at it and say, you know what, if this didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I just said to my mind, enough. I don't want to be a victim anymore. I don't want to be these things. I want to be happy. I want to show people that there's love and compassion out there. And I want to be that idea. And that mindset
Right.
alone changed everything. It was a game changer for me. Like it felt like instantly someone just took
Yeah.
everything, all the pain, the suffering, the depression, anxiety, and just ripped it from me. And it was like, I was like, that's all it took was I mean, of course, yes, you have to get help. You have to, you know, see a therapist. Those were all parts of that. But it really started when I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. Like, I really made a heartfelt choice that I no longer want that to be my story.
It's so incredibly simple, but it's not easy at all.
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely, and you know, and I think that's one of the things that you master so well over there at the Inner Truth Project, and you know, your staff, everybody is so great. Like everybody is so warming there, and like I say, and that's one of the reasons why I like to stay connected with this because there are people out there that do want to help. That's not like, you know, in today's world, it seems like it's corporate America. Everyone's about money, and if you don't have money, you can't get the help, you can't do what you want want. But there are people like you and I that are doing this not for the money, that are really out there to help people. And you have to be able to trust yourself enough to find people out there. And if somebody doesn't feel like they're the fit for you, well, then move on to somebody else. Keep asking. I mean, you have a plethora of information and articles and help. I mean, even today you can call on an app and it's like, get a doctor, get a prescription, see a therapist. So the help is out there. And I think that, and that's one of the reasons, again, why I want to have you out there. I want people to know that, like, people like you, this amazing person who had this trauma and is shifting to a whole different idea to help other people, are out there for you.
Thank you so much for saying all that. I feel the same way about you. And, if somebody is listening and this is the first time that they're sort of hearing something about this information, or maybe they just learned about this, for somebody else, because every day somebody hears somebody that has just gone through it. Just know that there are resources, even if the Inner Truth Project isn't the right place. There are resources in our communities. And sometimes all you have to do is just call. And it's like picking up an elephant. We understand that. But especially when you call our organization, and I appreciate you giving a shout out to our staff, because they're amazing. But when you call us, we're a survivor-led organization. So every single person on the phone is going to understand. There's nobody there to judge you or question you, or, in that kind of way. It's just sort of like, we're here, we get it, and we're going to walk you through the whole process, whatever you need.
Absolutely. Mindi, I honestly wish we probably could talk all the rest of the day, but unfortunately our time is up. Please give the people your contact information, your website and stuff, because I know, like, this is an organization that you definitely want to reach out to. It's just fabulous.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so we're in, our location's actually in St. Lucie County, but we serve survivors all throughout the Treasure Coast and down throughout South Florida. So anybody is welcome to call and come visit. Our number is 772-200-4599. You can find us on Facebook at Inner Truth Project. And I forgot for a minute what we were called. You can email us at innertruthproject@gmail.com. And our website is innertruthproject.org.
Mindi, don't feel bad. This is why I have this cheat sheet all the time with all my stuff that I'm about to go over, because you think after 10 years of saying this, I'd remember. No.
Right.
One more question really quick. What if someone is not in the Tri-County area or in Florida? Can they still reach out to you?
Oh, for sure. We get calls all the time, and it's not something that we have the direct resource, but we're one of these organizations that sort of understands how hard it is to make that call. So we're never going to say, sorry, we're not the right place, and hang up. We will help you find the appropriate place in the area that you live. So if you're listening and you have no clue where to start, just call us. We'll figure it out together.
Thank you, Mindi, so much for being on the show.
Yeah,
it was
fabulous
talking to you as always. All right, everybody, that is tonight's show. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you found value in this, or you know somebody that is a survivor of any type of abuse, whether it's a man or woman, please contact Mindi as fast as possible and give them this information as well. I hope you enjoyed this. Please share the show with anybody if you found value in it. Visit our Facebook at facebook.com/IamEvolution podcast. Our YouTube is at IamEvolution. Our TikTok, now we're on TikTok doing small little videos and everything, so those are always exciting. At IamEvolution33. Visit my website, soulandspiritguide.com, and sign up for the newsletter, because when you sign up for the newsletter, you get special VIP access to shows like Sessions. You're going to get VIP access to any the guests if they have any special offers that they're going to offer, and so much more. So make sure you sign up for that. And always remember to believe in yourself, and it's not our abilities, our talents that make us who we are, but it is believing.